It was the summer of 2018 when a group of college friends decided to take a road trip across the Appalachian Mountains. Mike, Sarah, and Ben had planned this journey for months, excited about exploring the scenic routes and camping under the stars. They loaded up Mike's old van with supplies and hit the road, their spirits high. The first 2 days went smoothly, with nothing but laughter, music, and breathtaking views. On the third night, they decided to take a detour off the main road to find a secluded spot to camp. They came across an old, unpaved path marked with a wooden sign that read, "Devil's Hollow, 5 miles." Sarah felt uneasy and suggested they turn back, but Ben laughed it off, calling her superstitious. Mike, the adventurous one, insisted they check it out. As they drove deeper into the woods, the trees grew denser, blocking out the moonlight. The van's headlights barely pierced the darkness, creating an eerie tunnel effect. Finally, they reached a clearing and set up their tent. As they sat around the campfire, strange noises began echoing from the woods, rustling leaves, distant whispers, and what sounded like faint laughter. "Probably just animals," Mike said, trying to reassure everyone. But Sarah noticed something unsettling: the laughter sounded like children. That night, Sarah woke up to the sound of footsteps circling the tent. She froze, her heart pounding, and nudged Mike awake. "Do you hear that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Mike listened intently but heard nothing. Just as he was about to dismiss her fears, a soft voice outside the tent said, "Come play with us." They bolted out of the tent, flashlight in hand, but found nothing but the still, silent forest. Ben insisted it was their imagination, but Sarah wasn't convinced. The following morning, they decided to leave Devil's Hollow and head back to the main road. But as they packed up, they noticed tiny handprints on the van's dusty windows. The handprints hadn't been there the night before. As they drove away, the engine sputtered, and the van came to a sudden stop. Mike tried restarting it, but the engine wouldn't turn over. While they waited for help, Sarah noticed something in the rearview mirror. A group of shadowy figures stood at the edge of the woods, just staring at them. When help finally arrived, the figures were gone, but the unease lingered. To this day, none of them can explain what happened in Devil's Hollow. The moral of their story? Some paths are better left unexplored. In the fall of 2020, Amy and her fiancé, Jake, were driving to visit family in another state. They left late in the evening, hoping to avoid traffic, but their journey took longer than expected. Around midnight, they decided to find a place to rest and stumbled upon a small, run-down motel on the side of the highway. The neon sign flickered, and the place looked deserted, but exhaustion got the better of them. The receptionist was an older woman with a strange, vacant smile. "You're our only guests tonight," she said, handing them a key to room 13. The room was old and musty, with outdated furniture and a faint smell of mildew. Jake joked about it being the perfect setting for a horror movie, but Amy didn't find it funny. As they settled in, Amy noticed something odd: a mirror on the wall opposite the bed. The mirror gave her an uneasy feeling, but she didn't mention it to Jake. That night, Amy woke up to the sound of faint knocking. It wasn't coming from the door but from the mirror. She shook Jake awake, but by the time he looked, the knocking had stopped. "Just a bad dream," Jake said, trying to calm her down. The next morning, Amy found scratches on her arm that she couldn't explain. She tried brushing it off, but the uneasiness grew stronger. As they prepared to check out, Amy noticed something horrifying in the mirror. For a split second, she saw her reflection smiling back at her, even though she wasn't smiling. She screamed, and Jake rushed to her side, but the reflection had returned to normal. They hurried to the front desk to check out, only to find the receptionist missing. On the desk was an old newspaper article about the motel's history. It had been closed for years after a series of mysterious deaths, all linked to room 13. Panicked, Amy and Jake left without looking back. Even now, Amy refuses to stay in any motel, no matter how tired she is. The moral of their story? Not all shelters offer safety. In 2019, a group of friends chartered a boat for a weekend getaway to a remote island. The island wasn't on any map, but the boat captain assured them it was a hidden gem. Excited about the adventure, they packed their gear and set sail. The journey was smooth, and the island was as picturesque as they'd hoped. Golden sands, lush greenery, and complete solitude, it seemed perfect. As they set up camp, the captain warned them to leave before sundown. "This place changes at night," he said cryptically. The friends laughed it off, thinking he was trying to scare them. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew colder, and the once inviting island felt menacing. They began hearing strange sounds, low, guttural growls coming from the trees. At first, they thought it was wildlife, but the noises grew closer and more human-like. One of the friends, Rachel, claimed to see figures moving between the trees. "Nonsense," her boyfriend Matt said, but even he looked uneasy. When they tried to light a fire, the matches wouldn't spark, as if the island itself resisted them. As the night deepened, the growls turned into whispers. "Leave," the voices said, over and over. Panic set in, and they decided to head back to the boat. But when they reached the shore, the boat was gone. Stranded, they huddled together, praying for dawn. Hours felt like days, but the whispers never stopped. Rachel suddenly screamed, claiming something had touched her shoulder. When they shone their flashlight, they saw claw-like marks on her skin. By the time dawn arrived, the boat had mysteriously returned, anchored in the same spot. The captain was nowhere to be found, and neither were his belongings. They sailed back in silence, each haunted by what they'd experienced. Weeks later, they tried to locate the island again but couldn't find any trace of it. The moral of their story? Some places are hidden for a reason. These stories remind us that not all trips are about relaxation and discovery. Sometimes, they serve as grim lessons about the unknown. So the next time you plan an adventure, tread carefully, you never know what might be waiting for you.